And I think we are live. Hello, everybody.
Hey everybody.
Welcome to our broadcast. Welcome to our Facebook Live. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I'm Zach. This is Luke, and here to give you a couple of updates on what's happened in the immigration world in the last couple of weeks. Jennifer should be joining us shortly, I think. But in the meantime, Luke, why don't you jump right into it?
Yeah, so I was just going to give a quick update. There was an interesting court case ruling that came out last month up in Washington. So if you paid attention to the news at all, there's this court case that's been going on where people are challenging the GEO Group. That's a big for-profit company that operates detention centers around the U.S. And they have this practice where they will pay detainees, in many cases, just $1 a day to work in the facility, doing things like cleaning, cooking, serving food, doing the laundry service. And so they pay these detainees who are there in the facility just $1 a day. And so the state of Washington, the Attorney General, challenged that practice. They sued the GEO Group and they said, hey, like, you can't do this. We have minimum wage protections here in Washington, and paying people just $1 a day isn't okay. So, this case went on for a while, but the judge or a jury actually recently found the GEO Group liable for paying these detainees back pay. So they said they owe them $17.3 million in back pay for the work that's been done. And also the court then fined the GEO Group almost $6 million for unjustly enriching themselves. So basically profiting off of this essentially slave labor in their detention facilities. So this is a big win. A lot of people have been challenging this practice. There's a case very similar to this that's currently going on right here in Colorado. That case has been pending since 2014. And so this is a big deal. The state of Washington, the court there, basically has confronted GEO and said, you can't do this. You can't pay people just $1 a day. And so we're interested to see how this impacts the case here and what happens, and whether there's going to be some similar rulings in other lawsuits around the country.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And look, like you said, there's been a bunch of these challenges before, and the fact that this one finally worked, I think it's hopefully going to set a good precedent to start moving things forward. I mean, it's pretty silly that you could say, like, hey, this person's completely unauthorized to work outside of the detention facility, but as soon as they're detained, go ahead and work as much as you want for $1 a day.
Exactly. Yeah, and the company's making huge profits. I mean, their profit margins are just massive in these detention facilities. So, they could certainly pay people more than minimum wage, at least minimum wage, but instead they're paying them $1 a day. What I find really interesting, one more thing, in some cases, in this case in Washington, they said that sometimes GEO Group actually paid detainees in chips or candy instead of an actual wage. Just crazy that practice.
And I've heard allegations in some of these other lawsuits that it was kind of like forced as well. There's I don't know, it was kind of coerced. Like you had to do X or Y cleaning duty, or you wouldn't get certain benefits.
It doesn't get done. Yeah.
So yeah, horrible practice. Glad there was some positive movement there, and hoping that it's a positive precedent here. So the detention facility here in Colorado starts to shape up a little bit more as well.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, so you guys probably noticed there was no banners. It's because I'm in charge of this one today. Sorry. I have, I guess, a couple of updates I was going to throw out. The first one is that there's a third H-1B lottery that was held that folks might have heard about. So background, I feel like every time I'm on here I talk about H-1Bs, but in March there's a registration period for this H-1B lottery where there's 65,000 H-1B visas available, an additional 20,000 visas available for folks who have a master's degree or higher from a U.S. institution. Um, there's always way more people who want the visas. I mean, this year there was something like 300,000 folks who signed up for the lottery. And with 85,000 visas, that gives you a little bit less than a 1 in 3 shot of getting it. An initial selection happens at the end of March, and those who are selected are able to apply for that visa to have an October 1st start date. But sometimes they don't select enough people, and that's what happened this year. So they held a second lottery to select an additional group of people. We, after that lottery, or I guess like just a couple of days before that lottery, I think actually, filed a lawsuit about how much fraud is in the H-1B registration system, and talking about how kind of the system needs to be revamped if there's going to be all these additional selections and things like that. And the government, as soon as we filed that lawsuit, and as soon as we filed this temporary restraining order trying to halt any additional lotteries from happening, they held it like the next day. Anyway, so the second lottery happened, and we were like, Judge, come on, this is a horrible practice. Look at all this fraud that happened. And the government came back and said, you know, it's happened already, and there's no way that there's going to be a third lottery. And lo and behold, here we are. Third lottery happened. Not a lot of people were selected. It's a much smaller selection this time because they're kind of just, I guess, hitting the very end of those 85,000 visas that were available. But yeah, it's on the one hand very nice for folks who got selected, and on the other hand, I guess it also kind of shows that maybe the government doesn't even really know what they're talking about when they say, there is going to be this or there's not going to be that. Yeah, we definitely filed a thing with the court right away saying, hey, you remember when they said there was not going to be a third lottery? Well, yeah, that happened. I guess it kind of remains to be seen what the court does with that information. Beyond that third lottery happening, people might have heard of the new COVID variant that's kind of spreading around the world, and that's it's all over the news right now. And new travel bans are put in place. This time they're not as I guess wide-reaching as they were previously. We had we had Europe, and we had the UK, we had Iran, we had Brazil, China. Like we had so many previously. This one's really just targeting countries that are the South Africa region. It caused a lot of consternation with kind of international relations because I guess these countries kind of feel like they're being punished for having reported that there's been this variant outbreak in their backyards. And kind of it's kind of like I don't know, incentive not to report new variants. We don't quite know how it's going to play out on the ground yet. If you want to know where my bet's going to be, it's that we're going to be back to no visas being issued, and more lawsuits are going to be on the way. But yeah, I guess it remains to be seen. It's only a couple of days since that actually got implemented. But that's a huge problem. Immigration lawyers kind of across the board really don't think this is a great system for, I guess, controlling COVID outbreaks, because there's so many exceptions that it almost swallows the rule. Like you just have folks who are U.S. citizens, for example, can fly freely, and it's not a problem at all. Of course, there's the COVID tests and the vaccine requirements and all of that, but there's I guess a ability for folks who could be infected to travel, whereas a non-immigrant, somebody who doesn't have any status in the United States beyond some sort of temporary visa, being barred from entering completely, and then it just doesn't make sense. Some people can come in, some people can't, and their chances of being infected are, really identical. And then beyond that, I've heard reports of things like the fact that there's fewer flights, meaning that there's going to be fewer reagents allowing for the testing of these new variants in these countries. So it's a whole big mess. Probably have to sue about it again, but well, we're there for that. Old hands at that one by this point.
Do you know, Zach, with those new travel restrictions, is there an end date that was put on that proclamation, or are they just indefinite?
Yep, in place until the president rescinds them. So it's we're going to be just kind of waiting around for lawsuits to kind of play out again, and for I guess, the CDC to eventually say they're good to go on, on rescinding these. In the meantime, there is still the same, 14 days in a different country to come to the United States, which again doesn't really make sense because this new variant has been found all over the place. So to only restrict these certain countries where it was first found in, and not the countries that it's now being found in, I don't know, doesn't quite make sense to me. It's not science-based, I would say.
Yeah.
But I'm not a scientist, I guess. I just want visas to get issued, and then if you have to quarantine, you have to quarantine, I think. But having these blanket bans, they just don't seem to work.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we have tons and tons of questions. So, Luke, do you want to take it away with the?
Oh, I don't know if we're gonna get through these. Let's see. Zero.
Zero. I mean, I really feel like as soon as we started doing this on Twitter, all of the questions just went away immediately. So, I mean, last time you guys got to hear about vegan Thanksgiving, I won't put you through that again, but know that it was really good, at least.
Well, next week, any questions for anyone who's watching this video recorded? We're always on every Thursday at noon Mountain Time. So any questions you have, this is your opportunity to jump in and ask some questions.
And I mean, that's the best part of this. I think that the back and forth and the answering questions is the most fun. So, come with some questions. Until then, though, I guess have a great week, everybody, and talk to you soon.
Yeah, see you next week. Bye.